Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras, distributed through Breadbox Media. I am joined today by my guest, Lorelei Savaryn, who is the author of The Edge of In Between, from Penguin Random House Viking Children's imprint. That's impressive. Before I jump into my conversation with Lorelei, I just a couple of things I just wanted to share with everyone. First, I have a new job. I am very excited to share with you that I have stepped down and away from many of my responsibilities at Wine Women in the New Evangelization because Father Peyton, the head of my Saint Posse, surprised me incredibly when I did a novena to him, just asking him to ask the Lord to use my gifts and talents where God saw them best used, or where he wanted me to use them in these days. Within a few days of finishing my novena, I was offered a job with Family Rosary, the very ministry Father Peyton himself began. What? Saints are real. Just letting you know, heaven is real, saints are real, and I am all over the moon. I obviously will miss my work with wine. I'm still going to keep a hand over there. It's not like I'm leaving my wine friends, but day to day, I will be more focused because it's almost a full-time job over at Family Rosary. So please keep me in your prayers while I integrate into my new job. I'm still kind of helping with my old job and editing my new book, Encountering Signs of Faith, coming out with Ave Maria Press, hopefully in September 22, if I can ever get through these copy edits. But we'll talk about those another day. But all that to explain that Lorelei Savaryn, my guest today. Lorelei, this is the first time in the 7 years I've been doing interviews that I'm interviewing somebody whose book I have not read. And first, I want to apologize profusely because that's kind of my trademark, it's kind of my thing. I always make sure I read the person's book from cover to cover, but with the craziness of my life, it just never fit in. But like I explained to you, I am a nonfiction girl. So I'm actually excited to hear about your beautiful fiction book. And it is on my list to read alongside my daughter this summer. So, Lorelei, tell me about The Edge of In Between. Why can I not say that? The Edge of In Between. Not hard.
Yes. So my book is a magical reimagining of The Secret Garden, which so many of us grew up with, either through reading the book or watching one of the beautiful movie adaptations. And I wanted to take that story. I had an idea that kind of used that as a foundation and reimagined it. So The Edge of In Between is about a girl who turns gray from sorrow. She loses her color and her magic fades and her entire world becomes gray. And she ends up having to move in with her uncle in a land filled with ghosts between the land of the living and ever after, where she thinks she can maybe find her the ghosts of her parents and be reunited with them there, and that will somehow make her better. But while she's on her uncle's estate, she finds a doorless garden that she can't figure out how to get in. But when she peeks through the cracks, she sees that it's entirely covered in ice, almost like it was frozen in the middle of dying. And she decides she has to get inside this garden. And once she's in there, she learns that magic faded maybe isn't magic lost forever, and that maybe she can find her way to hope and healing again. So that's kind of a short synopsis. There's definitely someone working against her healing in the story. So there's some peril and overcoming some tough and scary things, but it's also really deeply influenced by my Catholic faith. This is the most Catholic thing I've written to date. And so I'm really excited to talk to people who share my faith and be able to say, this is a book that you can share with your children and you can talk about faith with your children through, that you can find in bookstores anywhere on April 19th.
Oh my goodness. So many questions. I just in one little synopsis, I wrote down 20 things. So first of all, I have never heard of The Secret Garden. It could be because I'm looking at your face. Our generations are probably a few apart. So tell me just real quick, what The Secret Garden is, and I'm adding that to the things my daughter and I will watch do this summer together as well.
Yeah, so I grew up with a movie adaptation from like 1993, but it's actually a book by Frances Hodgson Burnett from like over 100 years ago. She also wrote The Little Princess. So just some like really like kind of canon, like classic literature. But not many people have done reimaginings or retellings of The Secret Garden like I've attempted to do, which kind of surprised me, especially in the middle grade space that I write for. So it's The Secret Garden. The original one is about a girl who's orphaned and she moves in with her uncle and she finds a garden there and gets to know her cousin and some other people who live on the estate. It's not a fantasy book though. It's very, it's fiction, but there's no magic involved. And I definitely twisted some elements of it and made them my own in this retelling.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so our generations aren't that far apart, so I should have heard of it. I am not 100 years old.
Okay, if you're not a big fan of fiction, it's okay that it wasn't on your radar.
Well, this is the scariest thing. I have a degree in English literature. Like that's my bachelor's degree. So I have read some fiction. Maybe that's why I no longer read it after 4 years of being engrossed in having to read everything. Somehow, The Secret Garden, however, escaped me. But my daughter, who is adopted and is some sort an orphan, this story is even more exciting for me to share with her, and she really loves fantasy. She does have a little bit of a cognitive disability, so there's certain things about fiction that I have to really explain to her. Like she's also deaf, so the idea that we'd show TV shows and stuff, and the music, I love magical things like that, but then she'd see animals talking, and I had to explain because this is not something you think about, right? Like animals don't actually talk. Oh, right. They make a noise, which I can't explain because there's no sign for noises. But like anyway, it's just interesting. So why magical fiction, Lorelei? What drew you to this type of writing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. This is my second novel. My debut is called The Circus of Stolen Dreams, and it's also in that magical realm. And I think for me, growing up, I had a lot of things kind of that were tough in my life when I was at this middle grade age range. And I found escape in stories that took me to different places. And I was just one of those kids who just really found comfort in books and being able to have adventures with other characters. And now as a parent, I have 4 children. I really want my kids to be able to read stories of kids who face tough or even scary things sometimes, and who find the bravery and the strength to come through it, and to have them see stories where good wins the day at the end. And I think working with magical worlds and magic systems really gives me a chance to introduce some wonder and whimsy. And I just love the whimsical, and I love wonder, and I love just that anything is possibleness of childhood. So I really gravitate towards stories that have magic in them. And that's kind of where I intend to stay for a while.
A couple of other things that came from that. So I can see why it's very much drenched in your Catholic faith, because one of the things I love about the Catholic faith is it's very mystical. Mm-hmm. It's not magical. It's mystical. And I think growing up, I didn't learn that. I learned like very, cut and dry of like, there's the God and you have these rules and you do them. And if you don't, you go to hell, and good luck with that. And that is not at all like our faith is filled with mysticism, with saints who appear. Padre Pio, one of my favorites, bilocated. He was known to be in World War II helping bombs, not kill people. Like, this is a very mystical, beautiful faith. A Blessed Mother, how many times has she appeared in these apparitions? It's mystical. Miracles. We are a faith of miracles. I mean, Jesus, he started those pretty quickly. His entire ministry was kicked off with a miracle. Yes. Now that I think about it, hello, wedding, feast of Cana.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about the Catholic elements in the edge of in between. Again, we're talking today with Lorelei Savaryn.
Yes. So when I was writing this, I kind of wondered, because I'm being published through a very traditional publishing house, and I was writing and I was like, I wonder if they're going to ask me to like pull back on some of these things. And they didn't, which I think was such a gift because I write from deeply personal places, and I'm a Catholic convert. I became Catholic in 2016. And that part of me is so deeply ingrained that it can't help but just come out. So some of the very Catholic elements of this are the whole thing basically takes place in an interpretation of purgatory. It's a transitory place where the souls of
Wow.
people who have died make their way to ever after. And some of them are running to ever after, like they can't wait to get there. And some of them are walking slower, like they're still wrestling through some things. And some of them are standing still because they're struggling to like let go of some attachment of some kind.
Wow.
Um,
That's phenomenal. I'm so excited. I can't wait. See, I knew if I spoke to you that I would get excited and for the first time in like 5 years read a fiction book.
Yes. So I was really influenced by C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce. And I know he's not technically Catholic, but I know he's beloved by Christians all over, and how he wrote this transitory story in The Great Divorce. And I wanted to do that for kids. So it truly is like a way to look at purgatory. And there's one particular ghost you get to know there who learns to let go of the things he's holding on to, and you see him transition into ever after at the end. And it's just this really beautiful moment that I think Catholics will truly relate to. It also deals very deeply with redemptive suffering and the suffering that we can't avoid here, particularly grief and loss, and how that suffering can be transformed into something beautiful. There's one point where one of my main characters cries in the garden, and she thinks it's going to make the garden freeze over again, but it actually causes flowers to sprout up all around her feet. So the idea that we can have something really, really bad happen, or something like that's really tough that we're going through, and that it can become something beautiful is the essence of our faith, right? That's the cross. Like that's redemption. So that's deeply in there, as well as theology of the body would be like the third thing I would say is in there. The fact that every single person has dignity and has a purpose, and that we are made to be gift to the world and to offer our lives as a gift and to use our talents to honor our Creator is also very much a part of my story.
Wow. Well, one of the things I just thought of was just that as we're entering into Holy Week, you cannot have Easter without Good Friday. And I also just made a note over to talk to my director of education at of faith education at our parish, because every summer we try to do a book club. And this, I'm thinking, my goodness, this is such a perfect, because she always, not me. She's a teacher. I just give her ideas because I know books. But we look for a fiction book for the kids to read over the summer that is drenched in the Catholic faith. And I'm so excited. The Edge of In Between is it. I'm going to send her, literally going to email her as soon as we finish with our interview. But I was also thinking, for the adults to read alongside with the kids, to read The Great Divorce, because C.S. Lewis was actually on his way to becoming a Catholic when he passed away. So he is beloved by all Christians, because his faith was incredible, and his writing to express that faith, as we know, also incredible. So the summer book club for the adults may be The Great Divorce, but the edge of In Between will be fabulous for our kids. And I also, parents, I know I like to read what my kids are reading, and it sounds like I will be thoroughly engrossed and enjoy. I just have one technical question for you. So Stephanie Lansop, who's also a fiction writer, a biblical fiction writer, one of my good friends, I always ask her, like, do these, I don't always would, do the characters speak to you? Like, this is a technical question about writing, because I find this fascinating as a nonfiction writer. Do you hear these characters? Do they kind of introduce themselves to you? Like, how do you write a fiction character?
So my process kind of varies. It usually takes me a couple drafts until I really know who they are, and they start like having full conversations that I can just kind of transcribe. So with The Edge of In Between, there was actually a point where I had to what we call like white page the whole thing, and I had to start completely over, because in order for me to get it right, I had something flawed in like my premise at the very beginning. In the original Secret Garden, the main character doesn't have a very good relationship with her parents, And I had started with that same premise, but it didn't work in terms of where I was trying to go with the story. So I had to start over and rewrite it with her parents being incredibly loving and wonderful, and that put it all in the place. So I had to start it over at that point. And when I did that, then everything started flowing. But I do have to spend some time with them to kind of figure out who they are. Sometimes it's a hard process, but it's always really good when I know them and I'm ready to go.
Well, you just helped me tremendously. So it's all about me today. We're talking with Lorelei Savaryn about her book, The Edge of In Between. But as we know, it's always about Allison. I'm actually part of my book that I'm writing. Each chapter has a little sidebar about the saints. And I went to bed last night just saying it's just not working. It's just not working. And the fact that I'd have to wipe them out and rewrite them was making me feel quite nauseous. But I see that there might be some real benefit, not to my editor, but since it was due 2 days ago. But thank you for just the insight. I mean, that's the beauty of writers or writers, right? Like it's just such a. And sometimes, you know what, Lorelei, we have to do that in life, right? We just have to white page it.
Yeah.
Like in our faith. Isn't that what confession is? We like white page our life and start all over again.
Absolutely. And honestly, like my husband found me crying when I realized I had to do that. But it turned out okay, and I knew it would be worth it. And now I'm really proud of it, and I'm so glad I made that change. But he like walked in and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No."
Well, I feel your pain. I also pray that I feel your success, and I really look forward to sharing The Edge of In Between, not only with my daughter, but with my whole parish. I would encourage anyone listening to consider bringing in The Edge of In Between as a book club for your youth group, for your religious education program. I came to the faith through Bible study and through book club, and I think sometimes we forget that will work beautifully for young people as well.
Yes. And if anyone does end up using it, either with your family or with a parish, I am always happy to, if it's with a family, you can send me a message. I will send you like a bookmark and some stickers. And if you use it with the parish, I'm happy to like do a virtual visit to chat about the book, or even in-person visits as well. I love meeting with readers virtually or in person. I didn't get to do that as much with my debut because it was 2020. So ready for all the talking about books this time.
Okay, now I'm going to share it with the diocese, which I also happen to work for here. So yes. The Catholic schools are getting an email. So
wonderful.
This is exciting. It's a hard, you tackle a really hard topic to share with kids. They don't really want to hear about redemptive suffering, but when you frame it in such a beautiful way, as I'm listening to you speak, I think it's a way that we could all learn from. And again, you can't have Easter without Good Friday. Yes. As we wrap up our time together, Lorelei, what would you like, with your just some final thoughts about the book and encouraging those who might be interested in reading it?
Yeah, so it's available now for pre-order. It releases on April 19th, and pre-orders and even just sharing the book with people helps so much, especially since my first book kind of came out during a rough time. I guess I would also just ask for people to pray for me. I am sharing this book with lots of schools coming up, some public, some private, and so I just pray that this book will find the readers it's meant to find, and any prayers for me as I send this out in the world would be so appreciated.
Well, you can count on mine. It was such a pleasure meeting you. I've been following you on social media for a long time, and I know we're running some of the same circles. So it's such a pleasure to meet you. I'm very excited for you and what God has for you, because He's obviously gifted you tremendously. So thank you, Lorelei, for spending this time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We have been speaking with Lorelei Savaryn, her new book, The Edge of In Between, coming out April 19th. I'll have all the links in the show notes. You have been listening to A Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras, distributed through Breadbox Media. God bless.